Welcome to Live from Plato's Cave. I am Mario Veen. This is episode 37, part 1, How to Block a Freeway with Anne Kervers. In earlier episodes, we talked about the concept of parrhesia, of speaking truth to power, which is something Socrates was doing also. Parrhesia means to speak about what is actually happening rather than what fits our social reality. In the past, we've seen this in cases of civil disobedience, of Gandhi, of Martin Luther King, of the suffragettes, and now we see it in the peaceful climate activists, such as Extinction Rebellion, who are regularly blocking the A12 freeway in The Hague and will do so again on the 9th of September 2023. Another insight from Plato's Cave is that many of the things that we regard as solid facts are actually social constructions that are not as old as we think. We saw this in the episode about rights of nature, where the idea that nature can have rights may seem strange at first, but actually the idea that nature does not have rights may be not that old. As it turns out, the same goes for money. A lot of the ideas that at least I had about what money is, how it works, turned out to be either a fiction or a young idea, which also means that we can change it again. Our guide through these explorations of civil disobedience and money creation is Anne Kervers. Anne is a PhD candidate in political theory at the University of Amsterdam. She researches the political dimensions of money creation in relation to the climate finance gap. Previously, she worked at the Triodos Bank and completed studies in sustainability, economics, applied ethics, and cultural analysis. Anne practices civil disobedience with Extinction Rebellion. In the first part of this episode, I will speak with Anne about what is involved in this, in civil disobedience, from the perspective of parrhesia, where you find it so important to ring the alarm bell for the scientific reality of the climate crisis that the social implications are secondary. In the second part, we start to discuss money. What is it? Where does it come from? Is it an illusion or not? And how does money creation work? Because you're doing so many different things and they're all kind of connected, which I really like, but they're also different, dimensions almost. Could we just start with just kind of reviewing your week?
Okay.
It's Friday afternoon now, so it's maybe good to close your week. How did your week go? Were you happy?
So it was a busy week in the sense that I did a lot of thinking and rewriting. I was making the outline for a new version of what needs to become my first article. Mm-hmm. And I went to 4 conferences in June. And so I got a lot of feedback. And I've been processing that the last 2 weeks. And I was discussing it yesterday with my supervisors. So that's to process a lot of complexity is always taxing, I think. And then there were also some highlights. I talked to a professor from the Utrecht University, and we're going to organize a meeting together for professors to discuss how they feel about coming to the A12 blockade against the fossil subsidies that we're doing in September. Because so far there haven't been many, like 3 professors in total, being there as professors. And I think it would be really good if there were more professors to, both make it easier for other employees at the university, but also as a sign to society. Like, these people are also desperate. And they, as someone from Scientist Rebellion explained to me, like, if people see that scientists are no longer trusting that we're going to solve this the technological way, then this is a clear message to people that we need to, that other people, that there is really a crisis going on. So I hope that through that meeting that we're going to organize together, we can discuss, because I understand that for many people, becoming an activist is scary in different ways. And I think when you discuss these doubts or fears in a group, it can really help to overcome them and to feel the, courage growing within you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's about 3 professors that are joining the A12 blockades?
Well, so far we've had one professor who also contributed to the IPCC report, and then 2 professors who also did a speech. Yeah. And the professor that I talked to from Utrecht University, she said that a lot more professors have come, but they weren't there as professors. And I think it would be really great if we have professors in toga. I don't know what the English word is.
Yeah, I should have looked it up because I was a previous podcast. I couldn't think about it as well.
But like the official...
The robe. Of professor, yeah.
Professor, robe and hat. And
yeah, so that means you're there not just as a civilian, like in your private life, but you're there in professional capacity and making a statement.
And I also think that it's in a way a duty for all people working in academia, but I think the more senior you are, the more responsibilities you have. Mm-hmm. And, governments are ignoring facts. And I think that it's up to scientists to then defend those. So we can have a long discussion about, objectivity and all those considerations. But to me, that is the main reason for why professors should join the protest. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And did you have this conversation this week or?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And it's always... so I remember I had such a headache afterwards because it's scary, like...
Because you're a first year PhD student.
I'm a second year PhD.
Second year, but working on your first paper.
Right, yeah.
And so that means you're quite dependent as well, right? I assume you have already like a promoter and maybe co-promoter.
Yeah.
But as you will defend your PhD thesis, there will be, mostly professors there in the corona, which I think is a very funny word. But So it means you're kind of not at the lowest part of the academic ladder, but there at the beginning. And you're kind of speaking to these professors there in the room.
Exactly. And I think, yes, and that's definitely, it is scary also talking to friends like this. We were just discussing before the Parisia concept by Foucault. And this is such a lived experience for me because I'm always putting my social relations at risk for the truth-telling that I'm doing regarding the climate crisis. And also... in this discussion, you get a lot of counter-arguments, and I think you need to be both bold in your arguing and be emphatic in what they're telling you, And so it requires a lot of skill, and I'm still practicing that skill. Mm-hmm. And it's like a muscle almost, I think. And so that is a challenge, but exactly what you're saying, it's also really... being a PhD and talking to a professor, it's not... Being bold is not nice. And I also told her I don't enjoy saying these things and I don't feel comfortable saying these things, but I feel like I have to. And I'm more scared of not doing this because I want to, prevent... I want to contribute to preventing climate crisis as much as possible. So not doing it is not an option, but it doesn't mean that I enjoy this. And why I wanted to do it with her, organizing the meeting, is because I thought that, when professors get invited by other professors, they're much more likely to show up and take it serious. And this is the same with, the hierarchy, that I am just a PhD. Yeah.
Yeah. And what do you mean by Parisia?
Well, so if I remember correctly, how Foucault explains it is that you're a person who puts their social relations at risk for truth-telling. So you're risking your friendships, your family relations, the relationship that you have with your colleague, and maybe also your professional status for saying the things that you think are true. So in this case, it's climate science. And I think I first experienced this when I was writing these stories on my Instagram account and saying to my friends how bad it is and stuff like that. I think that there is always this fear of being rejected because of what you're doing in terms of climate activism. But I also know that it's not a reason for me to not do it. I can still have this fear, and I think it's important to take care of myself having this fear, and I can also be a bit harder about it because this fear is maybe deeper emotional, right? Like fear to be rejected is a general thing, I guess. But on another level, I also think that, if people judge me over that, they maybe weren't friends in the first place. And that's a bit harsher. And I can also understand how these people have their own inner world and stuff like that. So I wouldn't necessarily take that position only. But there's different ways to deal with it. Yeah. And it depends a bit on my mood, what I'm going for.
Yeah. So is this an average week for you? Or... I mean, in terms of, because you're working on a paper, I read some of the outlines. It's quite a complex topic for me. I still have some trouble wrapping my head around it, but I mean that's great. I'm speaking to you now, so you can explain it later. But then you're also, I mean, you did some conferences. I don't know. Is it easy for you to give presentations? Do you have stage fright or what?
No, I don't really have stage fright, but you always get a bit tense, right? Like you always have this, it's not as if you're talking to, it's always a bit more difficult. And it depends a bit on the audience, how much more difficult it gets. And what really is my challenge is that I think that I am doing fine. And then when I'm at the stage, suddenly my heartbeat goes up and stuff like that. And that's really annoying because I'm trying to prevent it. Like I'm trying to take care of myself, but then it kind of slips through somehow. So no, I definitely do. Yeah, I am not uncomfortable, but I'm also not comfortable. Yeah,
for me, it's really inspiring, this documentary about Sting.
Okay.
Who, I don't know, he's been a musician for 30, 40 years or something like that. And then they film him just before he goes on stage. And he's like, it's just like, a first year student giving a presentation. He's like really scared and on edge and everything like that. And he says, well, it never goes away. Yeah, so this like... you're prepared, maybe you've done it many times, you've studied the topic and everything, but still you get this, you're alert, your body is awake, right?
And for me, I annoy myself because every time that I do something, I'm like, I need more time to prepare. Like I need to say the thing that I'm going to say at least 3 times and I never get to it. And so I'm a bit frustrated with myself why I am not succeeding at making that a priority. Yeah.
So that's quite stressful. Then if you do this to, your fellow academics and then speaking to a room full of professors.
Yeah, well, it's not, it's a bit, I would say a bit. It's not that it's really crazy stressful, but it's a bit stressful. Yeah.
How do you feel in preparation for these Extinction Rebellion blockades? So there's going to be another one in September, right?
Yeah.
I assume you're...
Another many, because we're going to return every day until the government stops the subsidies. So there's going to be 20 or 21 in September, and then we're going to continue in October.
So you're coming back every day?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so if I do, if I'm a spokesperson for XR, I also really put a lot of time into preparation. So for the A12-actie, I've done it a few times. And I have this document that I also share with the other spokespeople. And I really want to... And every time I hear an argument or I see something, on Twitter or whatever, someone is saying something anywhere, I always make a note and try to remember it. And I think with this thing, it comes with time, like the more often you do the same thing, that's really nice.
Yeah.
The more ingrained it becomes and the more easier it becomes when someone asks you to, like, I always try to do this canon of quotes like bum, 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 bum. So, and I really like, to me, it's a nice puzzle. It's a challenge.
Yeah. How many hours do you think you spent like in the middle of the highway of the A12 by now?
I think like on average, we probably have been there for, well, it depends a bit, because the ones in October and November were a lot shorter. Like I think those only lasted like 3 to 4 hours, and the ones in this year, they lasted like 7 to 8 hours, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. And then, of course, you get arrested, and you have to stay in the police station. And sometimes they immediately release us, which is also really weird, without any record at all.
Yeah.
I think like maybe 50 hours in total. Yeah.
50 hours. Okay, so more than a week.
Yeah.
It's such an interesting place to me, the A12, because it's, I used to live in The Hague, but now it's on my way to Gouda, so my, where I live now.
Yeah.
But my family, a lot of things are in The Hague, so I pass it quite often. So it's a piece of highway, and it goes down a little bit. There's a little bridge over it, and on top of the bridge, you can eat fries or something like that. Yeah. Actually, I was there in... I don't know which one, I think February. I was there just looking. I was there with my 5-year-old daughter because I wanted her to see. And I was telling her, now you see cars and soon there's going to be people on the road and they're going to block it. So she was quite excited. Yeah. She had like a kleurplaat of Olaf with her, the snowman. Yeah. Because I spoke with her about, that she doesn't only know snowmen from cartoons, but from real life as well. Yeah. But actually, we were sent away by the police. We were threatened with arrest. Yeah. I was there with my 5-year-old daughter, but there were many other children, and there were elderly people as well. Yeah. Just people like basically looking what was going on the road, and that's a place where normally you can stop. It's not on the road.
Yeah, it's just a pavement.
It's just a pavement,
and
there's
white
like,
pavement.
Yeah, and there's a fries or whatever bread you can just eat
it's
there.
It's a snack bar.
It's a snack bar, so it's a place where normally you stand. I like what you bring in the repetition part, because it's almost like a performance, right? It's like a place where normally the only function of that place is that cars are passing through. Yeah. At 70 kilometers an hour
because
maximum.
Technically it's not a highway. Yeah. I don't know what it's called in English, but it's like it's a road running up to a highway.
Yeah, an on-road, I think, or an on-ramp.
Oh, yeah.
Because you just, like in the city, the speed limit is 50 kilometers.
Right, and here it's 70, right?
And there it's 70, and then just like a few hundred meters...
Then it becomes a highway.
Then it's
after the lights.
But it's a place where, you don't have space to walk, basically.
No.
And then you have the Stop Fossile Subsidies Now, like Stop Fossil Subsidies Now, written there on the wall. Yeah. And that's very interesting, because I think it's between the Ministry of Climate and the government, temporary government building.
Yeah, the temporary parliament.
Yeah, so it's basically, if it's about climate, this is the seat of power.
Yeah, it's the Ministry of Economics and Climate, and it's also the department where they decide on the fossil subsidies. Yeah. But they're not... But even though all the power is there, they don't manage to take out of this, writing on the wall. Yeah, but that's because we keep on writing it when they take it away.
So they take it off, and then somebody comes there and write it again, and usually they get arrested as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. And arrest, of course, is something, because I remember that feeling, because I'm not an activist. I wasn't there. I was just looking at a demonstration and... not part of a demonstration, my daughter was, but I was just carrying her. But I even because I'm trying to get to this feeling of the police surrounding you with MA vehicles and telling you go off, and you know they're not. I mean, we live in the Netherlands. Neither of us are persons of color, so that's another reason. If you are, you must worry about that maybe. But generally, the police is very nice to you, right?
Yes, well, I wouldn't say nice. I think, yes, first of all, we're very privileged with, that we can protest without any fear for our lives, or because, what climate activism in the Global South are doing, they have to fear for their lives. And I think then, yes, when people of color are also arrestable. We always provide them with, if they want to, a body cam. And it's horrible how, like, I remember this blockade that we did in January where the police first turned off the camera.
Yeah, I saw that they took away the body cam. Yeah.
And then they don't hold up to their own standards. So, for instance, many people go floppy. I also always go floppy, and which means that you completely relax, and they have to drag you. And we do this because we prolong the demonstration that way. Legally, they have to carry you with 4 people, and they rarely do so. And then instead, they, so I've had so many what they call bokkenpoten, where they put your hands into a certain position, and that really hurts. So I don't do yoga, but when I get arrested, I always think of yoga, like completely relax and breathe through and all those things that I know a little bit, because then it hurts the least. And they're often also very rude and very emotional. They'll, and of course there's also nice police people, but it's also hard for me, at least, to trust them, because you never know, is this a good cop, bad cop, or is this person really a nice person? You can't know. And so my position is that I am always respectful, but that is where it ends. So I also always advise to people, do not speak to the police, because you don't know how your information is valuable to them. Even if you think that your information is not valuable, you don't know how it is to them. So nice wouldn't be the way I'd put it. And I also, getting arrested is also always a bit emotional to me, in the sense that it becomes very physical, the extent to which the government goes to protect the fossil fuel industry over their people, which they have a legal responsibility to protect. Yeah. And so it's not just the pain, the physical pain, but it's also the hurt of, we could so easily prevent so much suffering. And with these uprisings, then still they prefer to protect the criminals over the climate activists. And that is just so sad and angry.
It must be quite scary being there on the road. I was standing on the bridge. Yeah. And even there I thought, okay, there's children, there's older people. Yeah. So in that sense, I meant, the police is going... I know from the police they will, try to speak to you first and everything in that situation, right? Yeah. But even there, I felt there was this emotion, like this intimidation. Yeah. And actually, I know people who work for the police, so I have nothing against the police in the Netherlands. And there's always problems in many organizations, right? Yeah. But it's this fundamental thing of you're doing something which the authorities say you cannot do, or they're saying you must move, but you're not. They have the power, right? Yeah,
they have this monopoly on violence, and that just makes everything different. And I also think that generally power often corrupts. And I think here too, I guess that some people do not deal with this power that they receive as police people responsibly.
Yeah. So in that sense, it's quite serious, and you can get physically hurt, you can get scared, and you can get hurt in the sense they're an extension of the government, and the government is supposed to protect you. Yeah. And you're there demanding basically that the government protects you and the future. And this is the response. And of course, they get their orders, so they're doing something like that. But then on the other hand, it's something that you repeat it over and over again. So the A12 becomes this stage, basically. Yeah. And it's a stage where first you have to clear the stage. The cars cannot stop there. Yeah. It's this, even the word arrestable is so interesting. Yeah. Like I'm arrestable. Yeah. So I'm going to go somewhere, and when the police, they have to give some formal warnings, I think, before they arrest you. So then a lot of people, when they give the first or the second warning, a lot of people leave, because they know there's a point where, if now I don't do what the police tells me to do,
then you can get arrested.
You can get arrested, but you don't know, because you don't know if they arrest you or they spray you with the water cannons or whatever. But it's a choice. You're there. You're sitting there, but you're not doing really, because you're not doing, the whole thing is you're not doing anything.
Yeah.
You're just saying, well, I'm just sitting here.
Yeah.
Do you want to move? No, I don't want to move. But beyond that, you're not, I mean, maybe you're reading a book or talking to people or something like that.
Yes,
but you're just
people,
sitting there. So it's basically not doing something in a place where you're not allowed to be or not sit or something like that. Why is that so powerful?
I think what the people share who sit on the A12 is that we need disruption to get climate policy, to get adequate climate policy. And I think one of the things that, and I don't know why it's powerful, actually. I just think that it's a really good strategy that also historically has proven itself.
Like when?
A close example is the biking paths in Amsterdam. Mm-hmm. They also came about through people blocking the road near the Rijksmuseum because so many cyclists were dying in traffic accidents because there weren't cycle paths. This is how the Netherlands got their cycle paths. And I think also the fact that so few people know about how activism and disruption has contributed to the rights that they enjoy today is really a disgrace. But like other examples are the civil rights movement in the US, and then there is Gandhi's movement in India, the colonial regime that was thrown over there. And then there's also, of course, Mandela in South Africa. Another example are the suffragettes and the voting rights for women. And I think one thing that these things all share in common is that in their own time, these people who were doing that were thought to be crazy, and now we're celebrating them. And we need to disrupt to change it. And it's not and I think often people think that everyone needs to agree before something gets changed. But what you also see with these examples is that only a small amount of people need to do it to shift the perspective of a larger group. And then policies already come about, and then later the majority comes to terms with it. I think there's very few women today who would rather not have voting rights. Mm-hmm. But in their back then, a lot of women, and also more recently with other women's rights, women were saying, no, I don't need that. No, I don't think it's a good thing. I forgot what this clip specifically was about. But I think that all the rights that women enjoy today, there's maybe like less than 1% who thinks that they shouldn't, that don't want to have those rights. So we don't need the majority to agree with us now. It's not a popularity contest in that sense. Mm-hmm. But we need a small group of people. So some people say 3%, I don't know. And I think being on the A12 is also, personally, is powerful. I don't know if I would use the word powerful, but an answer that comes to mind is it's such a relief. I think that's a better word than powerful for me, to have agency in this crisis that is so overwhelming. Yeah. To finally have something that is meaningful that you can do is just for my mental health very important.
So it's a form of therapy as well.
Also it's also a form of therapy. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I think also being with people who understand you in the sense that you don't need to explain the climate crisis to them is also such a relief. Like I really feel a bit like, people ask me like, can you explain one more time? Like that I kind of need to convince them how bad it is. Yeah. And it's not a rational question for me, It's like if I'm having a beer on a Friday evening, I don't want to open this box of fear, anger, and sadness. Rather, I'd have my friends tell me, oh, you had a busy week, you did a lot of activism stuff, and I really appreciate it. And now can I, how can I help you, instead of, can you, why is it, or like making jokes about the climate crisis and stuff like that. And so being in XR is also, I've met so many great people that I so deeply respect. And so that's all great, but it's also really, really great to have to be able to be with people where you don't need to discuss the climate crisis, but you know that they understand and that they're also taking action.
Yeah, you have the same goal. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like that when I'm meeting somebody, like I'm meeting you, we haven't met before, but sometimes I'm meeting someone from our work or something, and I know they're, you know, not even an activist, but they're busy with this, and you have an instant connection because you kind of share this reality or this assessment about reality that.
Exactly.
I mean, the fundamental thing is that we are in a crisis. Yeah. I mean, that's the first step, right?
You're right. You know, it's like, it's not necessarily that someone needs to be in XR. I also share this with other people, you know, but it's about having this shared sense about the urgency. And it's also for me the first time that I experienced community. Like growing up, I never experienced any of that. And the way I understand is that I just have this form of instant trust without knowing someone. If I, for instance, get to know them through XR, there's just this level of trust that's already there that is not there when I meet someone who is, you know, who is not, who does not show that they share the same urgency about the climate crisis.
Yeah. But I imagine people who are in Holland, we have like Forum from Democratie.
Yeah.
But all around the world, we have this, like I think it's called alt-right.
Yeah.
Also sharing a reality about that there are all these conspiracies going on. Yeah. That, I don't know, the world is being overrun because white men are jeopardized and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
They must have this feeling too, right? They must have this feeling like if you meet someone, okay, there's certain jokes that you can make that you know, okay, it's safe to make these jokes with you. And they also have this idea about this, just referring to the Dutch context about evil reptiles taking over the world, or the what is it, the Bezos or something. There's like these people in power, the elites they call it, which is always funny to me because how can there be multiple elites? But okay. So they also have this idea about there's a certain crisis going on. Things are under threat, and there's a lot of people in the country that don't acknowledge that, don't share that reality, and they might also have this feeling. So how do you know that you're right? Basically, how do you know that you're in the right group?
Climate science.
Climate science, yeah. And what is climate science to you?
I mean, to me, it's 99% of climate scientists agreeing that we're facing an existential problem, and how that is going to threaten us and is already threatening a lot of people right now in so many ways, you know, from food security to water security, to, in so many existential ways is going to be a problem and is a problem. And I think because I meet these kind of people that you're describing in my Twitter feed. And yes, they are saying to me like, you're corrupted, you don't know that you're used by the elite. And they're all the things that they are saying to me, I think about them. And I find the nonviolent communication developed by Marshall Rosenberg very inspiring. And one of the things that I got from that is that emotions are very recognizable. So all the things that they're saying to me, I can empathize with their feelings, you know? But I also don't interact with it because it's just a drain of energy.
Do you engage with them or not?
No,
not
never.
At all?
No.
Okay.
Very rarely I will... Right. Thank you for your contribution. But that's only when I don't know. But I don't know when the last time that I did that. But it's probably over a year ago. No, I generally just mute these people. But what I always do is, and I got this from Hannah Arendt, because she said about something that we still needed to be able to laugh about it. And I thought it was a very powerful position, you know, because you can also decide these things in yourself. Like, they're not talking about me, and I can see how they are hurt and challenged and, unsafe and so many things. So, but I'm also not going to put energy into, saving all of them. So I just need to make this, how do you say, like bearable or processable. So I always, when I post something and there's like a lot of trolls commenting, I do this contest with myself, like what's the funniest reply? And so I go through all of them and I look at their comments from that question and then I mute them. It's getting a lot worse. So it takes more time now, but it's really nice that if you mute someone once, then the problem is solved for the future. And then I laugh about the ones that I think are, funny, that are original, stuff like that.
And do you see any patterns in there? Like, because I don't know if you know this, but I actually speak with them a lot.
Yeah.
And
oh, no, I didn't notice.
Okay, I study this. I've been studying this for years.
Yeah.
And one of my previous guests was Lee McIntyre, who wrote the book How to Talk to a Science Denier.
Yeah, oh yeah.
And for that book, he went also undercover in a Flat Earth conference.
Oh.
And so actually, it really interests me as well. So, I mean, they're providing very interesting data. Do you have the feeling that you get different comments than your male XR colleagues?
I mean, we don't compare. I never looked into it, but I assume that the ones that used to really enrage me were the ones that say, oh, little girl, you don't get it, stuff like that. And I think that is probably more common. An XR colleague of mine, she really got like bad rape comments. I'm glad I didn't get those. Yeah. I once got a letter through the mail that was a bit, luckily it wasn't sent to our home, but to a place where I'm related to. So that was not so nice. But it's also many people are saying that I'm getting paid by, whatever. And also because my PhD is related to climate crisis, they'll say things like, oh, you're making money off of lying to us and stuff like that.
Your PhD is about money, so...
Yeah, and they don't get that at all. Yeah. And I think for me personally, you have a certain amount of energy and you need to decide how to spend it. And for me, I'm trying to get more people to become like the forefront people instead of the people who really don't get it, trying to get them on board, Yeah. And I'm really glad that you're doing that work because I think in the end, everything is important and you just need to be doing where you feel you can contribute most or what feels most effective to you or stuff like that.
Many of the conversations I had about, I'm not part of Extinction Rebellion or any group, but I fully support them, especially because everything is peaceful. That's the number one thing. But if I have conversations with people about this, they say, but you're only polarizing with these demonstrations. And these kinds of people, maybe they're very extreme, the ones that leave comments on Twitter. Yeah. But a lot of people worldwide, but also in the Netherlands, they realize that climate is an issue, but they also care about if we have to take some radical measures, right, that would affect your ability to buy things or to take care of your children or to give up a certain way of life. So the argument usually is like you're only making things worse with this, because more like the moderate people, you're kind of scaring them off. And how do you expect to convince them?
Well, I guess that these people are also part of the people who are not going to be in the, who are going to be the silent majority who get along, like the women who are happy and grateful about their voting rights now, who wouldn't have been back then. Because you see that, both our protests are only growing, XR is only growing. And I think that awareness of the climate crisis is also growing. And I think that many people also realize more and more that we need to disrupt to get adequate climate policy. And yes, a few people will be appalled by it. And I think that a really good example are the actions with the paintings in the beginning of this year. So many people were appalled, but like
When they were throwing soup at Van Gogh painting and some other paintings as well in the museum.
Exactly, yeah. And then 2-3 days later, they start to realize, okay, so I really care about this painting, but do I care more about if the climate crisis is as bad as I think it is, and I suddenly need to balance these two, then the urgency of the climate crisis kind of settles further, because you need to engage with it once more and how bad it actually is. And so we both saw that a lot of people joined XR.
So when people are saying, okay, one of the comments was, yes, I support the cause, but this is not the way.
Exactly.
I actually saw you in one of the talk shows where you were invited after an XR blockade.
Oh, yeah.
And most of the time was spent there. I think I measured it. There was like 10-15 minutes about, is this the way, and are you allowed to break the law and whatever. And then you did this like I think it was like 37 seconds you did climate science 101, but the rest was you were being asked questions about but I understand it's a problem, but shouldn't you do this, shouldn't you do that? Do you think you're just going to scare people off? I mean, you must get this all the time, right? Like people saying, I understand why you are doing this, but why block a road? Why break the law?
Yeah, and I think what I am practicing is how to pivot to the issue. Yeah. So every time you get that question, how can I pivot to the issue? And so you can both say like disruption, has proven to be effective. And also we have had climate diplomacy for 30 years now, and CO2 emissions are still going up. So clearly that hasn't been enough. But then also pivot to the issue, to the climate crisis, because we need to be discussing that, like how is this a threat for us? Because I really think that most people, and there are many climate scientists who agree with me on this, are not aware of how bad things are going to become. And I think if you see how quickly things got bad with Corona, I cannot imagine how bad they're going to get when people find out how fucked they are, how politicians have lied to them. And also when it's already too late for certain things to... I really like the Dutch word onomkeerbaar, irreversible, because so many of these consequences are irreversible. Yeah. And so there is a point after which it's too late. You cannot turn it back.
You cannot take out CO2 out of... When CO2 is in the atmosphere, it's there.
If the Amazon went past its tipping point, there is no technology that's going to return it to being a forest. Yeah. A rainforest, then it's just going to be a desert with, which has like a 1,000 other consequences. So discussing why are you doing this? Yeah, it's really a challenge to turn that to how bad this is, because it's also there's also many of these questions that are just ways to avoid the trauma,
Yeah, so you're presenting them with an immediate problem. So you're presenting the city of Den Haag with a problem. Well, you're not really the people who drive the cars, because, it's announced, that it's going to be blocked and everything like that.
Yeah. And that road has also been closed for half a year last year.
Yeah, sure, yeah. And you're presenting the police with the problem because they have to remove you. But you're also presenting journalists and everybody with the problem where they're saying you're not throwing paint at paintings, but you are disrupting something. You're doing something which is not allowed. And then you're saying, but because the argument is usually like, so then they start to post pictures of flooded roads and everything and saying, well, why is the climate crisis blocking the road or something? Yeah. So you're pivoting to something else which is urgent. Yeah, it's do you know the tragedy of the horizons?
Yes. Yes, I was just thinking last week, I need to write something about the horizon is on fire or something like that. The tragedy of the horizon is this thing coined by Mark Carney in 2015, who was then the director is not the right word, I think the president of the Bank of England. And he said that the reason that financial institutions cannot act in accordance with the climate crisis is because of this disconnect between return now and return in the future.
So the reason I know it is because it's used in this novel, The Ministry of the Future by Kim Stanley Robinson. So I did some research about it as well.
Yeah.
But do you know the novel as well?
Well, yes. Like I almost have every week someone telling me I should read it, but I haven't because it's...
Because in your free time you
Exactly.
want to relax. Yeah, I understand that.
Yeah, I don't want to be... I also really need moments where I don't think about the climate crisis.
This novel, I learned many things from this novel. It opens with a giant heat wave
in India
with wet bulb temperatures, which means that your body cannot give off heat to the environment. So you start to boil inside and now we have this in India.
Yeah.
So now I don't know if it's now, but last week there are hot bulb temperatures in India.
Yeah.
So I got halfway and I thought, okay, this is, I think it's one of the blurbs saying this also, give this to like policymakers because you need to read this. But so that I know from the tragedy of the horizons is that now we're kind of living in a bubble. We're still kind of comfortable. We're in the northern part of Europe. We're not in the heat wave. It's actually quite enjoyable, the weather. People are complaining that it's not really summer weather. It's like 20-something degrees and raining a lot. So it doesn't really feel like we're in a crisis or an emergency. Yeah. But this is the time that we can still do something. Yeah. So if we do something now, if we have radical climate policy, then we can still affect.
You say radical, but I think it's adequate. Also, sometimes politicians will say ambitious. Yeah. And I think... my partner Chris always says, you also don't go to the dentist for an ambitious treatment, you go to the dentist for an adequate treatment. Yeah. And this is the same, right? Like seriously, the survival of our species is what is at risk. Ambitious is relative to what, or radical relative to what? I think it needs to be adequate, you know?
Yeah, it's like I was kind of half quoting also Ernst Jan Kuiper, who said we have one choice between radical climate policy or radical climate change.
And actually, radical makes much more sense because, yes, we need to change things from the root. Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
And there's also this book by Michaela Loach, I think she's called. I'm not saying her name right, probably. And it's called It's Not That Radical. So it depends what is radical, right? Yeah. So you're on blocking the A12, but is it really radical? I mean, the last time there was like kind of a festival. There were musicians coming. It was almost like people were like dancing in their bikinis because of the water cannon and joking. And I love one of the things that touched me most about the previous protest, which was in May, I think, was the XR clowns, because it's such a serious situation. You have the people sitting there surrounded by the police, and you don't know when the police is going to do something. Yeah. And like I was trying to get before, it's kind of this performance, but it's very serious. But it's still, technically, it's performative. It's a performance. And you did also cultural analysis, right? So performative, you must know this concept. For sure. So it's for sure, it's performative. But then you have these clowns, and they're kind of joking around. And it was like, the energy just kind of dissipated, playing with it.
I got arrested before they did their thing, but I talked to one of the clowns in the train going to The Hague, and she said that it's really de-escalating.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Same as when you're reading the Twitter comments and you're trying to find the funniest comments.
Yes, in a way, yes.
Because it's like, I guess so that's... The word is absurd in this. I mean, that humor has to do with absurdity. And so the tragedy of the horizon is that we can do something now if we change things radical, in the sense we change course. Like Michel Serres says, in the 90s, he wrote this book already about climate crisis. And he said, we're in this boat heading towards an iceberg. Yeah. And all we're doing is slowing down 10% instead of changing direction.
Exactly, yeah.
So it means like we have to change direction, right? Yeah. And now we can do that, but by the moment that people actually start to feel it, they have their oh shit moment, then it will be too late. So if we're now experiencing 1.3, when we experience 1.5, maybe people think, whoa, shit, we don't want this to get worse. But then it may be already too late to avoid 2 degrees, So I'm trying to figure out what is it, because I think these protests on the road are pretty powerful, because Extinction Rebellion has done a lot already, blocking trains in Amsterdam, coal trains, or going just like normal demonstrations, sometimes still, going in front of banks or something like that. Yeah.
I think it's also a combination with this very simple demand that we have, like end fossil subsidies, is something that almost everyone can get behind. And I think that also more people start to realize that, yes, blocking a road is extreme, but doing nothing is more extreme. And then by that, I don't mean that you need to get arrested, right? But coming to the A12. But I have to say that the arrests do really help, because the way that the media works, the number of arrests really determines the coverage that we get. Yeah. And
especially when journalists are getting arrested.
Yes, that also really helps. So thanks for the police for that.
Or when they are arresting people before the blockade
yes,
takes
that
place,
also really helps.
Waking them up in the middle of the night.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So it really helps to, that I think that the demand is so simple really also contributes to the success of the A12 action.
Yeah. What's your formal role in XR?
I used to have a couple of formal roles, and then I got the burnout, and I decided I cannot imagine a world in which I don't take action anymore. Like, I feel it's an obligation that I have, and I needed to do it for my mental health. So mental health in the sense like taking action and also being with people who share this. Then I decided I'm only going to do actions and no longer do any meetings. Yeah. That was a great decision. And so now I do a bit of spokesperson stuff. And then I also really enjoy... so for instance, now I'm organizing this thing with the hoogleraar. I'm also trying at my own university to get the university to sign a couple of movements. Together wrote this initiative, this letter to the government saying that they need to stop fossil fuels. And that got signed by a lot of companies and NGOs and stuff like that. And I thought it would be really nice if the university signs that as well. So I'm trying to organize that. And this other goal that I had for myself this summer is to mobilize people for the A12, because we really need a lot of people, because we're going to block the road every day.
How many, do you have numbers about how many people were there?
No, we're expecting 20,000 in September on the 9th.
And how many were there in May?
I think between 8 to 10.
8 to 10,000 people that got arrested? Or
no, who joined the blockade or the support demo. Yeah. And then 1,555 got arrested.
But that was already double from, I think, the time before that, right?
Yeah. Yeah, before we were just below 800, yeah.
And now we had the worst summer storm on the record. And so it's so, do you have this double feeling where, like I said here, the climate is quite okay at this moment, the weather, I mean. But many people in the Netherlands go on holiday to Spain or Italy or France. Yeah. And there it's like all these record temperatures. Yeah. And then, of course, I feel because I know climate change hits hardest with the people who already have it bad. So I'm not happy it happens. Yeah. But I also think, but maybe people get their oh shit moment when they go on holiday there and they realize like, whoa, what the fuck? There's something going on. And they come back and maybe they do join the blockade, or maybe they do something else. So
I have this pin and t-shirt by a designer from the UK called Spelling Mistakes Cost Lives. And it says, it has to get worse before it gets worse. So I, as you say, would never be happy that things are really bad. Yeah. But I do think that, the climate crisis and the situations that people are being confronted with in the south of Europe right now is helping to mobilize for the A12 actie. Yeah, and it's such a double thing, because it's like the most privileged thing, like tourism. But this is what people who can change a lot of things care about, is going on holiday and enjoying their time in the sun. And,